Texan fans, how can the Houston Texans neutralize the Tennessee Titans front four? Big Sarge wants to tell you how Nico Collins is the key to stopping it all.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Battle Red Nation. I'm Texans credentialed media member and Texans football analyst John, some sports guy Hickman, alongside Texans credentialed media member and the man with the big hat and the even bigger smile, Brian Big Sarge Bearfield. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Big Sarge, Texans listeners, we are talking Texans today, having pride for the stride. The Houston Texans are about to go on their last playoff push before the playoffs get here. They got some crucial games that they need to win and get some mojo going. More keys to victory for the offense. We open up today's show looking at how can the Texans neutralize the Tennessee Titans front four. Also, shout out to our everydayers, making sure that you give us a listen when you wake up, when you get your day started. So we really appreciate that. You guys are a part of the Locked On family, your team every day. That Big Sarge.
Yes, sir.
DeMeco Ryans just gave a lot of love to the Tennessee Titans front four. Said that the Tennessee defense is particularly strong, led by defensive tackles Jeffrey Simmons and Travaze Sweat. Their size and power make it hard to run against them, and they excel at controlling the line of scrimmage. Our main focus will be handling their defensive line, which is key to their strengths. He also mentioned they perform well on third downs with tight coverage, forcing offenses into tough situations. The team is well coached and plays hard, creating a formidable challenge for us. Their aggressive style and effective scheme has troubled many opponents. Now, of course, we know the Tennessee Titans rank number one in the NFL in defensive yards allowed. They currently rank 12th in the league in run defense at 114 per game. They only allow 4.1 yards per carry, and the Texans have combined for 42 carries and 42. Excuse me. The Texans have combined for 42 carries for 94 yards in their two games against top rushing defenses in the NFL, Detroit and Minnesota. This will be a tough game, Sarge. This game will be tough for Houston, but you're saying, hey, I know Houston can combat that pressure by getting the ball to who?
Nico Collins. And
Talk about it.
John, before we move on, let me give you another stat. According to Next Gen Stats, the Texas interior offensive line have allowed 112 pressures this season, third most in the NFL. Jeffrey Simmons has 25 pressures on 238 pass rushes, 0.92 seconds get off time, which is the fifth fastest in the NFL, fourth against the run stop rate, and first in run stuff. But you know what, though, John? That sounds like that's a hard day at the office for Juice Scruggs. And going up against Devondre Sweat, that's a hard day at the office for Jared Patterson.
And Shaq Mason. Shaq Mason's getting up in age. You got to go against that youth, man.
Yeah, and I want to say this, though, John. For whatever issues that they're going to have dealing with that front four, and especially those two, then they're going to have to do something, because it's going to be a battle going on at the receiver position. It's going to be a battle going on to stop Dalton Schultz. It's going to be a battle to be able to stop Joe Mixon out of the backfield, because sure, you can stop him running, but you can't stop him from coming out of the backfield, getting into wherever he needs to get as far as catching passes. Now, back to Nico Collins. On Thursday, I got a chance to ask Bobby Slowick, offense coordinator for the Houston Texans, a question about Nico. And there was some questions about his snap counts on Monday night against the Dallas Cowboys and the amount of time that he played. And so I asked him if he was on a snap count. I asked Bobby Slowick if Nico was on a snap count. And he said, we really didn't go into the game with any sort of snap count. But obviously, anytime you get a player like that back, you're taking notes of how do we want to use him? How do we want to make sure we're being smart? And if this game becomes a critical game at the end, we want him on the field. So how do we make sure we are getting the best version of Nico when that happens. And then I asked him with a follow-up question on if his playing time will increase in the next 2 weeks. He said, really the same thing. We're always going to approach it as we're trying to be smart. The more often you can get a really good player on the field 100% and not win it and being able to roll, we're going to do that as often as we can. So what that's telling me is, even though Nico was healthy, building up coming into that game, even though they gave Nico that extra week of rest coming out off IR, it's still different, John. And we talked about this. You and I have talked about this when players are coming back from injury. There's a difference in being on that side field where the injured players are and working out and running. There's a difference in doing that and then getting in the game shape. Because now, not only are you running around, you're also getting hit. When you're trying to come off of injury, you're not taking any hits, you're not getting any tackles. And then the game speed increases. And so I think that last week, the Houston Texans did a very good job, a very good job of how they were able to use Nico, and it got to the point where they really didn't need him anymore. So they're like, cool, we'll use him next week. The problem this week for the Tennessee Titans is that Nico Collins is fully healthy. And Nico knows that he was the best wide receiver in the game before he got injured. He's ready to reestablish that and to let them know him being on the field, John, is going to make Simmons and Sweat run side to side instead of getting up the field like they want, because they can get up the field. All CJ is going to do is get the ball to Nico. Now they got to try to run to make the tackle as well. So those two to neutralize them, make them run side to side instead of steady coming up the field.
And I think to your point, this is one of those games where I don't want to see stubbornness in terms of play calling and just forcing Joe Mixon up the middle. That's not going to beat this team. That will not beat this team. And what that's going to end up doing, which I thought the Houston Texans did a very good job against the Dallas Cowboys, of course, two totally different defensive lines, and so they were able to kind of control the line of scrimmage. But that's going to force Houston into second and long, third and long situations, and you don't want to necessarily do that versus the Tennessee Titans, right? You want to make sure that you create the rhythm and be able to sustain it. And mentioning Nico Collins, right? I mean, this is the receiver who missed 5 games, right?
Yeah.
Up until coming back Monday night. Nico is still 6th in yak yards from screen plays with 107 and 13th in yards per catch from screen plays, sitting at right under 12. So when I look at, okay, how can Nico actually put the game plan, how can they game plan Nico into this game to give Houston the shot, right? And of course, we're going to talk about CJ Stroud finding his stride. Getting the ball out to one of the better screen receivers in the NFL is going to do wonders, because what that's going to end up doing, to your point, those big D tackles, if they continue to crash down like they normally do, they're not necessarily going to get gassed.
Yeah.
But if they got to huff and puff while running up the field to try to make a tackle on a receiver that, I mean, within 2 strides, Nico is 6 yards up the field. That's how. That's why he's been successful with a lot of these screenplays. 2 steps, he's already almost at the first down line, how he runs with those, that long stride. So I think we should definitely see Houston prioritize getting that ball out quickly to Nico Collins with some blockers in front of him and allow him to let the offense take the fight to Tennessee. There will not be any L'Jarius Sneed, so they're already going to be down there, big name cornerback, best statistical cornerback coming into the season. They also got some other deficiencies on that defense that I think Houston can exploit. But sorry, stop me if I'm wrong. I just feel like getting the ball out to Nico quickly is just going to do wonders for this offense.
And John, I look at it like this too. Two things I want to add to that. One, when the Tennessee Titans played the Detroit Lions, they came in as the number 1 defense in the league. They gave up 52 points. But even with that being said, though, John, what they were able to do is, and if Bobby is watching, the Tennessee Titans have a terrible time picking up motion. Like they have a terrible time picking up motion plays, and that's all Jared Goff and that Detroit Lions offense was doing to them. So Bobby Slowick should do that exact same thing. Put Nico in motion, put Tank in motion, put Mechie in motion. And then another thing they should do, John, if you really want to tire out Simmons and Sweat, go up tempo. And now you're getting them going up tempo. They ain't gonna want to keep running back to the line of scrimmage like that, and then getting down, and then you get the play, and then what do? Hey, let's go up tempo. Tire them out, and you get to the point where now they're tired. They got a substitute. Okay, cool. Now you the substitute. We do what we need to do. Bring it back in. Every time that they be in, John, I would promise you, every other 2 plays, I'm up tempo. Hey, CJ. You already know the plays. Hey, in 2 plays, they got them on there. All right, and here's the next 3 plays. Run that play. Run the next play.
You're right.
Speed up. Get them out the game. You like can tire them out.
And you know why I was laughing? I'm going to tell you why. It seemed like all year since Chicago, the NFL saw the blueprint on how to beat the Texans.
Yes.
And they've just continued to do it. There was nothing special about they can't pick up the blitz. They can't handle stunts. The communication is off. And so when you said that, I thought to myself, this is the perfect game for the Houston Texans to do to another team what everybody else has been doing to them all year. The game plan is there from a team that dominated in that win. Just do what works. And with that, Kenneth Murray, the linebacker, you talk about having issues picking up motions and stuff like that. Kenneth Murray, the linebacker for Tennessee, has been god-awful. So he's a part of why I believe he can be a big key to victory for this offense to win on Sunday.
Real quickly, sounds like they're missing a very good linebacker named Azeez Al-Shaair.
You think so?
I think so.
You think so?
I definitely think so.
Oh, after that game, they may need some therapy because it's going to be a little rough for them. It may get ugly. It may not. But this is the perfect time to let you guys know about BetterHelp. Today's show was sponsored by BetterHelp. Listeners and viewers, take a moment to thank someone in your life, including your therapist if you have one, or just somebody you want to shout out. If you have multiple people you want to shout out, pause right now. Take some time to just say, man, thank you. Text them, call them, however you want to do it, because this month is all about gratitude. And along with the person that you just shouted out, there's another person that we all need to shout out, and that's ourselves. Sometimes it's hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything in a crazy world. That's not easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. You can do BetterHelp and talk to a therapist on the way home in your commute from work. It's that easy. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional cost. How do you do this? Well, it's all with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. Let gratitude flow with BetterHelp. And also, ladies and gentlemen, I will be going to the Rockets game later today. I think the Rockets are going to whoop up on some Trailblazers, and I'm just going to be happy to be sitting in the Toyota Center. And I got my tickets with Gametime. So I believe in Gametime. Gametime does a few things that I really do love. So as number one, I can see where I'm sitting in the app before I buy my tickets. And if there's something that comes up, I have a baby girl now. If there's an emergency, they have the ticket customer service policy, the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So again, if something happens, they got event cancellation protection, job loss protection. Gametime has it all. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, Locked On NFL, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it?
Game time.
Welcome back, Locked On listeners and viewers. If this is your first time, please subscribe, like, and comment to the podcast on YouTube, and especially where you listen to your audio podcast. Big Sarge.
Yes, sir.
Listen here, man. I think this is going to be a tight game for Houston, especially through 3 quarters. If Houston can get up a touchdown, that may force the Tennessee offense to abandon their run game, and it hasn't necessarily been great, but they may force him to put the ball in Will Levis's hands a little bit more, and then that's where you'll see some of those turnover-worthy plays. And then you got a defense here in Houston where you got Derek Stingley in their secondary, Kalen Bullock in their secondary. He has 4 interceptions. By the way, I don't know any conversation that should be had without mentioning Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock in the Defensive Rookie of the Year conversations. I think that's crazy, but you got a secondary that will, create some of those turnovers and take advantage of it. I think this game will be big in terms of field position because the Tennessee Titans are one of the worst special team units in the NFL. They are allowing nearly 38 yards per kickoff return. So I think Houston can definitely capitalize on good field position. But this is one of those games the Houston Texans offense needs to stay on the gas. No, I'm not talking about no White Widow. I'm talking about making sure they keep attacking a great defense that has weaknesses in places that they got to exploit. And again, that's Kenneth Murray in coverage. According to PFF, Murray is allowing a little under 10 yards per catch. He is second on the team in yak yards allowed, but he's also only allowing a 4.1 average depth of target. So guys are being able to catch the ball, and they're getting away from him. When you look at the matchup of a Tank Dell in the slot, a John Mechie in the slot, and the name that we've been waiting to hear have a big game all year, Dalton Schultz at the tight end position, he's a player that I think Houston could absolutely exploit. Quarterbacks they have a completion percentage of 92 when targeting him. 6 TDs he's allowed throughout the year. And to your Joe Mixon point, he may not be able to get it done on the ground, but he has allowed 4 of those 6 TDs to running backs. Breece Hall and Allen combined for 75 receiving yards in a TD. Wilson for the Packers, 35 yards in the TD. And Ramondre Stevenson from the Patriots, 38 yards in the TD. That's a player that I think if Houston could find him on the island, he is going to really allow things to open up for this offense because of his mistakes.
John, the one thing that I loved about, and we talked about this earlier in the week after the Monday night game between the Cowboys and the Texans, one thing that I loved is watching CJ take what the defense gave him.
Yeah.
It's the first time in a long time I've seen CJ say, okay, you're going to take away all of my options? No problem. I'll just get out of the pocket and take however many yards I can take scrambling. Okay, so I don't have any options. Let me just throw the ball away. Bobby Sloyd talked about that on Thursday as well, saying that CJ made the plays that he needed to play to sustain drives, to keep us on the field. Even the plays where he threw incomplete passes, he threw them away so nobody can get the passes. John, we've been looking at this thing, and we've been looking at the Houston Texans offense all year, and we've been waiting for a very long time. CJ is destined to have a breakout game, John. And I think that once that next breakout game, because I think he had back-to-back 300 plus passing yards earlier in the year against Buffalo, and I forgot who they played before they played Buffalo, but was it
the yards are coming? It's not the TDs that are not coming, but the yards are there.
And so he's destined to have that 300 plus yard, 3 touchdown passing game. The best thing about having Nico Collins back on the field is the fact that you get everybody else that can get involved. I predict that the Houston Texans will score anywhere from 14 to 21 points in the second half off offensive touchdowns. 2 of those will come from CJ Stroud passing.
Sarge, don't get them people happy in them comments.
I predict Nico will have one, and I predict Tank Dell will have one. Another player who is destined to have a breakout game, who hasn't really gotten into the flow of the offense this year, Tank Dell. John, I'm just going by what I see when it comes to the Houston Texans offense. The Tennessee Titans defense and this Houston Texans offense. John, I also see the fact that the way that the Texans defense plays, I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for the Houston Texans offense to have multiple, when I say multiple possessions, I'm not talking about 2 or 3 possessions. John, I'm talking about 5 to 7 possessions each half. Because the way that defense is playing, you're getting Will Anderson Jr. back. You're getting Kamari Lassiter back. This is going to be you're getting Foley Fatukasi back. You got Mario Edwards back. John, this is going to be the first time in a long time that the entire defense has been healthy.
Yeah.
First time in a long time. You're giving one of the best defensive-minded coaches in the NFL, in DeMeco Ryans, all of his assets, all of his tools to be able to just move everybody around, do what they need to do. Danielle Hunter has 7.5 sacks. Will Anderson has 7.5 sacks. They're going to wreak havoc in that game, and that's why I say the offense is going to have a breakout game. CJ and Tank going to have breakout games because they're going to have multiple opportunities to do this. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see Davis Mills in this game.
If we see Davis Mills, no injury, of course, then that should be like the conversation all next week is, okay, Houston maybe turned the leaf over because this is still a formidable defense, right? Let's not fake it. But I mean, to your point, I'm waiting for the CJ game as well.
Yeah.
And division games are always tough. This is a very much so winnable game. And I'm also looking at it like a Jarvis Brownlee. The last 4 weeks, 6 penalties, right? Those guys over there, they, like you mentioned, they're going to give Houston opportunities. They're going to pass interference. They're going to hold. They're going to allow you to have a big kickoff return, and which is why I'm really excited to see Dameon Pierce. I think he should be the Texans' kickoff returner to close this year out.
Yeah. They're going to make up for that Jets game too, John. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
But they're going to give you those opportunities. I think the fear has been, will Houston take advantage of it? Right? At one point throughout this year, the defense for the Houston Texans continually gave them the ball. In the second half, of course, they're not scoring no points. And so now you got that monkey off your back last week. Came by Joe Mixon run. Everybody is waiting on that CJ Stroud game. And again, I say this, and I know you can answer this. Who's also waiting for that CJ Stroud game?
CJ Stroud?
CJ's waiting for it too. So why not now? Why not against the Indianapolis Colts? Now with that, not Indianapolis Colts, excuse me,
Tennessee
Titans.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place. They already whooped up on them, the Tennessee Colts. I'm everywhere.
Yeah.
They already beat up on the Colts. And this could be the Texans' 3rd, 4th pre-division.
You may need better help.
I may need. We got more Locked On Texans when we come back because DeMeco Ryans understands that this is a crucial point in the season. And if the Houston Texans are going to have any playoff success, they got to get it right now. Attention Texans fans, ready to turn your football knowledge into some serious cash? Look no further than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This week, the Texans take on the Titans, and FanDuel got some juicy props for you to get in on the action with. How about the over-under set at 40.5 points? I think it's going to be a defensive showdown early, but Sarge, you said 14 points in the second half by the offense. Could get an offensive explosion. I'm not sure. Place your bets right now on FanDuel. Also, if you're feeling bold, the man with the plan, the key to victory, Nico Collins. Could he score the first touchdown? That right now is very tempting. It's sitting at plus 600. So that means a $10 bet could win you $60 if Nico finds the end zone first. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out FanDuel, the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, visit FanDuel.com to join today, and they will give you $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. Welcome back in, Battle Red Nation. Sarge.
Yes, sir.
Your head coach in Houston, not Mike McCarthy, but your head coach, DeMeco Ryans, I think he's extremely focused right now. He was asked about, what has he learned during his tenure as an NFL coach about the stretch time when players tend to improve toward the end of the season to make the playoff push. And he said, for me, it's any season. It's all about hitting your stride at the right moment of the season. And that's down the stretch when games become a lot more impactful and a lot more meaningful. The focus has to be heightened. So I want to ask you, what player really needs that moment to say, you know what, this is where I got to give the best of the best? Because for me, it's CJ Stroud.
So for me, probably, and this is going to sound crazy to you, it's probably Dalton Schultz. It's probably Dalton Schultz because Dalton hasn't had the year that everyone expected him to have, especially when the Texans re-signed him. He hasn't had the year that he should be having, that everybody is waiting on him to have. And John, we haven't seen him play a clean game in a very long time.
Yeah.
You might get him to block, but then he's not catching. Or then you can get him to catch, but then he's not blocking. And so I don't know where the disconnect has been. I don't know how they can get him back on track outside, because I mean, he's getting targeted. He's getting targeted as well. So they got to be able to get him back on track. He's somebody that they're going to need going towards the end of the season. Just look at it like this. They're going to go into Kansas City. It's going to be loud. It's going to be cold. The weather conditions could play a factor in them being able to move the ball if the run is not working, if they're not getting Joe Mixon to run. Of course, we know that Kansas City is going to look to take Nico out first. And then after taking Nico out, they're going to look to take out Tank Dell. That's going to leave a mismatch for the tight end position. And that's when Dalton Schultz needs to step up. And you're going to have him step up in those type of conditions, because they could be right back in the playoffs playing in those conditions in Pittsburgh, or they can be in that condition playing in Baltimore, or they could be back in those conditions playing in Buffalo. And so now is the time for Dalton Schultz to start hitting his stride.
Yeah. I can't agree with you more, honestly.
Yeah.
We're going to always say CJ Stroud. I'm going to always say CJ Stroud because, again, we haven't seen that moment from him yet. He's a quarterback of his team. The talent is undeniable. Yeah. Everything with CJ Stroud is undeniable. He just hasn't had that moment, all factors included, of course. But Dalton Schultz is a guy that we've talked about a few times on this show.
Yes.
Just about his lack of involvement. And when he's getting involved, not necessarily taking advantage of the opportunities that he's getting. And I think we started to, at least me, so I'll speak for myself, I think I started to regulate Dalton Schultz in that same area I started to put John Mechie in. Like, he needs the opportunity, once he gets the opportunity. But the fact is, honestly, Houston wanted him. They re-signed him. He had a good season last year. So he shouldn't be regulated to a player that is still trying to find his way in the NFL.
Yeah.
So that's on me. He should 100% be much more of a factor for this offense. So I definitely agree. But a player that I think we're going to see the best version of, and he's a guy that I kind of peaked him on last year. He plays his best football in the second half of the year, and we saw him get going last week against CeeDee Lamb. I think Derek Stingley is his notice is already put on. Shout out to Eric Murray, by the way.
For sure. Really good guy in the locker room.
Shout out
Very good guy
to Eric Murray. He's been playing some good football, y'all.
Yes, he has. Yes,
but I think Stingley is about to really. I'm kind of speechless. I think Stingley is about to do some things in the NFL to close out this year.
All he has to do is I feel like all he really has to do is to show out in either the Kansas City game or on Christmas Day, which more than likely Christmas Day at home, bright lights. He's probably
Beyonce.
For sure, Beyonce.
Beyonce, and hopefully she don't steal the lights like she did the Super Bowl.
Right. But John, all he needs is one or two more good performances, and he's solidified all pro. He's all pro.
But I think this is also going to be a good matchup for him Sunday. Calvin Ridley's been playing some good football. He had a couple of touchdowns called back. He's really been, but he's been that only weapon outside for that offense.
You know what, John? The one thing that I love about doing the Locked On Texans podcast with you is that we almost share a brain sometimes. John, I have a stat right here because I said John is going to mention Calvin Ridley. And when he does, I'm going to say this. Calvin Ridley in 10 games, right? 36 receptions, 541 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
Nico Collins, 6 games. 4 less. 36 receptions, 621 yards, 3 touchdowns. John, are we really going to say Calvin Ridley has had a great year?
Calvin Ridley is averaging 15 yards a catch while doing that with a Mason Rudolph or Will Levis. But I'm saying, so when you go up against teams that may be one of the weaker teams in the NFL, you still got a game plan for their best player. For years, teams were doing that with the New York Giants when they had Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, he's going to stop. But, John, yes, Derek Stingley, but Derek Stingley knows Calvin Ridley. He's played him more than one time. Well, you're not going to have
no doubt.
What's his name? Is it Keyshawn Butte? What's his name from the
Keyshawn. Keyshawn.
It won't be a end of the first half Keyshawn Butte moment for Derek Stingley against Calvin Ridley. I can tell you that much.
No, I don't think it will be, but I think that's going to be a good. When you look at the end of the year, All Pro and whoever, it's going to be about names versus names.
Yeah,
and Calvin Ridley is still a name in the NFL.
Aziz, just like Aziz Al-Shaair said, hey, on the outside, outside looking in, he told me this specifically. On the outside looking in, I seen a shutdown corner. Playing with him, I see a lockdown corner from the outside looking in. Playing with him, I see a lockdown corner. Calvin really gonna have maybe he should use Prize Picks and bet on himself on not having over 50 yards received.
Don't tempt him with a good time. Don't do that. Last but not least, Bobby got his stride is important.
Yeah, for sure.
Y'all can say whatever y'all want to say about Bobby. I thought last week he called a damn good game. In those moments, especially for a team that preaches stat good moments, those moments matter. So what I want to see, Bobby, leave that hat at home. Don't even bring it to the game.
I didn't even know that was a thing till Thursday.
Leave the hat at home.
How did that even become
Burn that hat.
How did that become a thing?
I don't know, man. He was playing with his head on fire without that hat. Coaching, at least, from the sideline. Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast. Give me a follow on social media at John_Hickman12 on Twitter and at Some Sports Guy on Instagram.
And you can follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Battle Red Nation, let's go get a dub Sunday. Peace.